Slowing the Gophers' roll next on the Voice of College Football. We are talking Minnesota football here at MarkRogersTV, the Voice of College Football. We do so in recent months with Daniel House. You can catch him on GophersGuru.com, GophersGuru.com. Daniel does an outstanding job of keeping tabs of Minnesota football, pretty much like no one that we've come across. Daniel, we appreciate you stopping by today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Wild week, Mark. Wild week.
A week that nobody could have anticipated in regards to, of course, the last 5 months not being anything anyone would have anticipated in the Big Ten and across the nation, and now specifically with Minnesota. I alluded to off the top, obviously, a program that has everything going in the right direction following last season, following the seasons prior under PJ Fleck, and certainly the recruiting and the new facilities and just everything in play for this particular program. And so just a huge disappointment for really everyone involved, but I don't think it hits home to anyone more than the senior athlete who might be getting their last go around, and it's going to be in a much compromised way, if at all at this point. You heard from PJ Fleck and was in on the Minnesota conference call the other day. So just take us through the Minnesota perspective and slice of what's happened and transpired in the last few days.
Well, obviously everyone's disappointed because of the way the Gophers played last season, 11-2, winning the Outback Bowl. I hadn't seen anything quite like it in terms of excitement for a Gopher football season since I've been following the program. And PJ Fleck said he started meeting with each player individually. So he wanted to sit down with every player on the roster, and he asked them 4 questions. And one of those questions was, what did you think of the Big Ten's decision? And he said he got through a third of the players, so 30 for 30. All of them said that they supported the decision that the Big Ten made to postpone the fall season. And now he's going to start meeting with the other players. But he said, obviously, they're disappointed, but the decision that they made, the conference made, was one that the players supported.
So what's interesting about that is obviously the comments that were made most notably in Lincoln, Nebraska, and also in Columbus, Ohio, prior to the decision, and then certainly in Lincoln following that, where out in the Pac-12 you had a 12 for 12 vote there. In the Big Ten, what was leaked preliminary was a 12-2 vote, and then we don't know exactly, at least officially from Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren, what the vote was, but I think it's pretty obvious, again, from the outcry at Nebraska, at Ohio State, at Michigan. I've heard as many as 5 Big Ten schools, maybe more, that were dissenting votes. So it's curious to know. I don't think in any way anyone should make a connection between this and a lack of commitment to football by any means. But the difference being what we've heard out of Scott Frost. And then even in the ensuing hours after the decision, not just a coach popping off, but as you know, AD, chancellor, president, talking about going and just making up a schedule and joining another conference for a year, if that is what's needed, whatever it takes to play football, versus the commitment and the loyalty we're hearing out of the Minnesota program to the Big Ten.
Yeah, PJ Fleck was talking at length about the medical professionals and seeking advice from them and following the data that they had obtained from the conference and letting those people drive all the decisions that are made. I mean, he made the comment that health and safety is at the forefront of everything that's going on right now. And he also went into mental health. He believes that he needs to focus his program on the mental health of the players right now, because everyone in the world is going through so many different situations right now. And we need to be checking on one another, making sure that everyone is doing okay and has the resources that they need. So Fleck, I posted it on Twitter, a video talking just a lot about the resources that he will provide for his players to make sure, and not just his players, but everyone associated with the program. I mean, mental health right now is an issue that I think is going to be at the forefront of everyone's mind, especially with college athletics not being played. These players are so used to this football football mentality in the fall, and to not have that, and the academic stress that's on them right now, probably having to be online for the majority of their classes, almost all their classes, the way it sounds. I believe it's like 70-30 online versus in person. So the players will be facing a lot of challenges, and not only that, but things that are going on at home. It's just right now the mental health needs to be emphasized, and PJ Fleck talked a lot about that in his Zoom call yesterday.
It's a great point, Daniel. And as you well know, the balancing act ever since this broke in mid-March and then projecting toward a college football season had become for most health versus money, and that being the driving focus. But as we've gotten closer to a season and the decisions that needed to be made, yes, other things have come up that weigh into this in terms of not just the immediate health, but the long-term effects, not just the health pertaining to the virus, but as we've seen in society, the impact of this quarantine type situation for 5 and 6 months to the general population. This particular demographic is hit hard with depression and suicide anyway. And yes, the ramifications of playing and not playing is much more than just money versus health. A lot of other things involved.
Yeah, PJ Fleck said health, well-being, mental health, physical health, everything's at the forefront right now with Minnesota's program. And he said the data and the decision-making that the Big Ten had set forth is going to be stuff that they follow, and they want to make sure that they have the safest environment for their players. And we don't know what the fall will look like. Will they be able to come in and have much contact with the coaches? If not, there'll be a lot of captains practices. And I think that gives Minnesota a clear advantage because they have a lot of leadership that's built up over the past couple of seasons. They're at a point in the program where they built a lot of depth. Tanner Morgan, key leader of that squad, and he can help drive some of those captains practices, develop some players. I thought PJ Fleck brought up an interesting point during the Zoom call that I hadn't even thought about yet. The way the Gophers have built their roster now, they've gotten to the point where they've created depth and they've increased their recruiting significantly. They've been able to upgrade every single year. And you look at what's coming in right now. You've got people like Jalen Logan Redding, Douglas Emillion, Daniel Jackson, a lot of really talented players from that last recruiting class. Now, if you don't play, you've got the opportunity to continue developing those players in the strength and conditioning program, the educational components of the offense. Those players have a lot more time to develop behind the scenes than if you're just throwing it into game action and you're going. Those guys might be more ready to contribute in the spring. So that makes things very interesting when you look at how Minnesota could get through this, next couple of months. They're positioned better than a lot of programs. You look at someone like Iowa coming in with a brand new quarterback, with Nate Stanley departing for the NFL. The Gophers have stability at the leadership spot, and they're at that point where they have the competitive depth to withstand a stoppage like this, and the roster can continue to get better while the coaches have possibly some contact with them, and they continue to work in the strength and conditioning program and the offensive system.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Here's the checklist. Please like the video, even if you don't agree with my opinion or my take on college football. If you enjoy the contributions of others, if you enjoy just the debate, the discussion, and the analysis here, please like the videos, share the videos on social media. There are people out there that, of course, don't know that we're here, don't know Daniel has a tremendous site, gophersguru.com. So if you share the videos out there on social media, then you bring a whole new audience in and contribute to the channel. And of course, you subscribe right here, turn on the bell for the notifications and know when we go live. Rashad Bateman was one of the first big name players to opt out. Seems like a pretty clear decision for a guy like him, Rondale Moore, Micah Parsons, and others to say, this season's going to be compromised, maybe shut down anyway. I've got too much on the line, the health of myself and my family, but magnified by my potential in the NFL. Now here we're at a place, Daniel, where a spring season's being talked about, determined. There are various logistics and models out there. And so for the Rashad Bateman, the Trevor Lawrence, the Justin Fields, it seems like a clear-cut decision. I can't play spring football. I'm preparing for an NFL draft, and there's enough tape on me, and I'm such a high selection. It's a no-brainer. But as you well know, and know the NFL draft as well as I do, we've got 250 to 60 players that are drafted each spring. And on top of that, there's probably 400 to 500 players that are legitimate draft prospects. And how do they approach it? Do they approach it as, I need to get a little bit more on tape, so I'll play? Or no, I'm preparing for the draft. And if there's a mass exodus, that's really going to impact rosters.
You raised a really important question there. What does the NFL draft process look like? A lot of these guys that stayed an additional year to maybe get some more tape out there, what type of decision are they going to make? Do they feel like they want to play in the spring and continue to build up their film, possibly risk an injury? There are a lot of implications that you have to think about. For example, let's apply it to Minnesota. Coney Durr, cornerback. I think he's got NFL potential. Solid corner last year, very physical, excellent coverage player, contested a lot of throws, really good man coverage type of guy that can play in the NFL potentially. But could he improve his stock enough by playing in the spring to justify staying? I think so. And there are a lot of players across the country that are going to have that big decision coming up here. And I believe there's going to be a lot of opt-outs coming, especially with the uncertainty, not a lot of planning going on in the fall right before leading into this fall season. I don't think there was even much discussion about what the spring season would look like. And now we're starting to have those discussions and plans being rolled out. I don't know if there's a lot of answers. And the clear-cut guys, like you said, Micah Parsons, Rondale Moore, Rashad Bateman, they all had to make that decision because they know that they're possible first-round picks. They can focus on the draft process. But these other guys, like in the middle tier, they're going to have to really think this through and decide if another year is going to be pivotal for their development.
Got Daniel House on the line from GophersGuru.com. Check out the banner right there, GophersGuru.com. Even if you're not a Minnesota fan, love college football, want to keep up in depth with one of the top programs in the Big Ten and one of the up-and-coming coaches and stories in the nation, go to GophersGuru.com. So, Daniel, when it comes to playing or not playing, the decision's been made. We can argue it forever. It's going to continue to be debated and from different angles, depending on how this all plays out. Whether PJ Fleck was asked this question or maybe your perspective on the plight of the Big Ten and Minnesota going forward, if there's a successful season completed in the fall by the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12, how much do you think this hurts the Big Ten and Minnesota?
Yeah, it's something to think about because the kids are going to all see the SEC, ACC playing in the fall, and then it does the Big Ten play with the Pac-12 in the spring. It comes down to selling your program and the decision that was made by the Big Ten Conference. I don't even think we know what the virus is going to bring over the winter. I mean, it could blow up. It could be like lighting a match and the SEC and the ACC have to stop. Or we could get to the point where the SEC and the ACC just don't even want to try it. They say, we're not even going to explore that avenue. I think that the Big Ten has positioned themselves they need to come out and say, like, this is why the decision was made. Here's what our medical experts had to say. And this is why we did it. Make it clear with those recruits exactly why this type of decision was made. And I think it's apparent with Minnesota's players, actually, because PJ was talking about the third of the team he spoke with saying they supported the decision. And I mean, that's the key, is to get that information out there so that prospective recruits understand why the conference made the decision it did. And I don't know if we know what the next couple of months are going to look like. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 could be the smart conferences in the end, or it could look like, well, why didn't you give it a shot? I don't know. I mean, the uncertainty, the gray area with everything right now makes this decision very difficult for everyone involved. Like I've been saying for a while, NCAA doesn't provide much guidance in this situation. I mean, what's the point of the NCAA if they're not going to give you some sort of a direction up at the top? Now you've got conferences everywhere, groups of people trying to make decisions, and I think that's what's created this. There's not a unified approach. And PJ Fleck said data and the medical professionals and everything that the Big Ten has worked through, the leadership of AD Mark Coyle, everyone that's involved with this decision, he's going to support what they want to do. And then they're going to try to find a way to push forward and keep the program progressing despite all of the uncertainty, and focus on the health and well-being of the athletes right now until they know exactly what's going to happen.
I'm on record in a number of places to say I don't agree with the decision, but I'm not saying it was a wrong decision. I'm saying, based on all the variables that I have to me, I don't agree with the decision, but I don't know. I'm no expert either.
I mean, it's so uncertain, Mark. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. I think that applies to everything right now. In the next few months, we don't know what the world will look like, and college football is definitely one of those things that it is so important to a lot of people. And there's money invested. There's athletes who give it their all. And I just think that it's tough to win in this situation. Nobody is going to have the right answer until we get through this virus and figure out a plan for the new normal.
From a marketing standpoint and a sales standpoint, the College Football Nation, in particular the Big Ten fan and future recruits, I do think, regardless of what happens or the success of a season by other conferences, the Big Ten can sell that the long-term impacts and the knowns and the unknowns of what this is should say that we are looking out for your son, your daughter, in regards to fall sports in totality, and that's our priority, that they can sell that if they do it the right way. And I would think PJ Fleck would be one of the major people involved that could sell this as well as anyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. You just watched the video yesterday of him talking about mental health and the well-being of his players and the staff, and that's the main focus right now. He said football secondary completely. We want to make sure that everyone is safe, and that we're making sure that the players can get through these next couple of months, because it's going to be challenging on a lot of people. Everyone associated with college football is going to face significant challenges over the next few months.
Daniel, it's a program that we need to keep track of here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, and your insight and your perspective is always valuable, and certainly you always deliver. So we appreciate you taking the time for us.
Hey, thanks for having me.